time is now 6:30 p.m. I will call this special public hearing of the Charter Revision Commission to order. So please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Linda Jardins.
Present.
Cheryl Hurley.
Present.
June Gagne.
Present.
Brandon Waskowitz.
Present.
Colleen Legaskis.
Present.
And Matthew Radant, present. Christopher Lumpkins is excused tonight. Moving on to item C, review and approval of minutes of August 14th, 2023 special meeting. Minutes from our meeting last Monday were distributed. Hopefully everybody has had an opportunity to review.
I'd like to make a motion to make a correction to the minutes.
Okay, what would be the correction?
The correction is in paragraph just above where it says C, establish a schedule of meetings. It said a vote was taken for June Gagne as recording secretary, I should say.
If there's any spelling errors, grammatical errors.
It's a spelling error on Colleen's name.
I didn't catch that one.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
Use an email then.
It should say it's
Oh, okay. Yeah, no. Okay,
It's okay.
She's right, Kathleen.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay, so there is a motion on the floor to amend the minutes.
I'll second.
We got a second from Lynn to amend to, and I'll ask Colleen to clarify her motion to accept the minutes as amended.
Yes.
And it is seconded by Lynn. Any further discussion or revisions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. So moving on to item D, public hearing. So, reason for us gathering tonight, this is the first of a minimum required 2 public hearings as part of the charter revision process as established by Connecticut state statute. I have divided on the agenda item D, public hearing, into 3 sections. The first section, titled Public Participation Regarding Revisions to the Town Charter. I'd like to offer the first opportunity to the residents, if present, to speak their minds about any potential changes or what they might like to see considered during the process. Part 2, under this, I set aside as the opportunity for any members of the Board of Selectmen to speak to the packet of proposed revisions that they distributed a week ago, if the opportunity shall arise. And then part 3 is any outstanding questions, opinions, follow-ups of that nature, including members of the commission if they wish to speak in their capacity as residents of the town as opposed to members of the commission. So with that being said, basic ground rules are, if you have something you'd like to address the commission on, please approach the mic, state your name and your village of residence clearly. And I don't see the need to time any responses given our massive turnout tonight. But if the need so be, then we will establish some time constraints to give everybody an opportunity to speak their mind. So I will turn it over to the public at this time.
There we go.
Good evening. Gary Stubblewing, Moosup. I wanted to bring up the possibility of maybe adding in the charter in regard to the new Public Act 23-5 for early voting. I think that's fairly important. It gives 14 days for general election, 7 days for early primaries, and 4 days for special and presidential preference. So you may want to consider somehow implementing that, added to the charter. Because that comes into effect January 1. And plus, it requires at least one early voting location. My personal preference would be probably have 2. Maybe one for like Central Oregon, one for Moosa, Plainfield, something like that. But that's just my idea for that. And also, on the charters that were revised in 2018 and 2021, is there any documentation for section 2-4-C why that language was changed? I would recommend getting a letter directly from the attorney explaining why that was changed, from going from 2 items to 3 items. Try to get some direct literature, a letter from them directly explaining the reason that they did that for. So, and that should do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Dean Gorman, Sunnybrook. This past budget season lent itself to a lot of confusion and probably a lack of communication and clarity. I think there's a couple of items in section 2 on the budget process that need to be reworded. The other thing that I would suggest is that anytime we have any type of tax increase, regardless of what the mill rate takes effect, if we have a tax increase, I'd like to see expanded voting, not just a town meeting, because if you go to just a town meeting, then you're restricting your voting representation, and you don't get a good feel for what the people in the town want. So I don't know if you want to put it to a referendum, but I think that the way we had it this past year, it could have been better. We could have had better turnout. We could have had better voting representation, especially when you consider that we were restricted to the number of people that we can have in this room. And we actually had people outside waiting to come in to vote. So I think in order to be fair to everybody, first shift, second, third shift workers, people with disabilities, we need to expand that voting anytime we have a tax increase. Now, how we would go about that, what type of qualifications you would put to that, I don't know, because I do know that in some cases, people's taxes were either flat or went down. But because of the revaluation, the majority of our citizens received a substantial increase, even though the mill rate went down. And so I'd like to see the voting expanded, reworded in the charter somehow so that it makes it available to everybody to participate in that particular process. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
Tom Sinkowitz, Plainfield. I want to just concur with Dean and Gary as far as what they just brought to the commission. As a Board of Finance member for the past 6 years, I've certainly heard from a lot of residents during the budget season, but this one in particular, when it came to 2 points of clarity. One is, why do we only have a town meeting, which of course, it's been like that in the charter for quite some time, but many saying like, well, I have family that they cannot make a 7 o'clock town meeting. So I think it would definitely be something that we should just consider to give more opportunity to the residents to be able to vote on our budget. And as Dean was also saying, regardless of the fluctuation in the mill rate, whether it go up, down, I think that it's a good idea at the times that we are in where many people are juggling multiple jobs, part-time jobs, and definitely a graveyard shift. And others such as that, we should try to be able to work with their schedule so that they have just as much input as those of us who typically can make 7 o'clock meetings. But obviously it's only a certain audience of people who can do that, and others are trying to get by and trying to work. So That, I think, is definitely something that should be considered. The other thing is clarity, as Gary brought up, as far as the budgets. The big thing being, people were not sure, based on the wording, and how it changed. So if one gets shot down, are they all shot down? Or if one passes, that one is good, but we still have to revisit the other two. I remember talking to a lot of people in the audience and explaining the way it currently is in the charter. But I definitely think that that should be looked at again and possibly go to the town attorney to say, does it need to be reworded, clarity, or as Gary was saying, why did it get reworded to begin with the way it is? Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. Before we move on to part 2 here.
Excuse me, may I address the board again?
Yes.
One of the things you will have to consider is when you're voting for the Board of Finance, there's going to be, this coming year, there's going to be a 7th position, but the way the charter reads is you vote for 2 people. So that'll have to be addressed somehow so that you're not looking at a 4th cycle or something like that, or maybe you go 2, 3, 2, I don't know how. So that is something you'll have to look at so that you can have clarification for not only for the board, but for the people that are going to be electing the positions.
So moving on to part 2, if there is no other additional input at this moment. Proposed town charter revisions presented by the Board of Selectmen. So my intention tonight during this part of the forum was to have either Mr. Cunningham, Mr. Gardner, or Mr. Gagné, if present, address any of the proposed changes that were discussed at the previous Board of Selectmen meeting. We can certainly speak to elements of this, but as this is the public forum and the presentation of which, I don't see this as the necessary discussion by the commission as much as it is presenting it to the commission for consideration. So Art, if you would like to address the commission at this time. In your capacity as a member of the Board of Selectmen.
Art Gagné, second selectman. I assume you got Kevin's notes on his revisions? Okay, so we'll go through those. What I've come up with. Same as Dean Gorman said with the Board of Finance, 7th member, we're going to have to change that. And you may want to look at number 2 too, because that never actually happened, the special election. The first one, corrections. Bear with me. Easier. First thing I want to bring to you is the quorum. There's 2 places that mention quorum in the chart, and that's in the procedure in section 2-2. And also in the Board of, Chapter 5, Board of Selectmen in Section 5-2. It doesn't say, in that one it says what the quorum is. 2 members would constitute quorum, not 3. The other is a quorum for the 25, I believe. Yes, 25 registered voters. So, I don't know if there needs to be clarity somewhere in the charter about a quorum, because I've heard this come up before. Do we have a quorum, do we not? I know BOE is different, just a question for me. Going on to 2.4C, I know this is going to change, but second to the last line, it says town budget for the next referendum of town meeting. It should be or town meeting. That's just a typo. You see that one? And then section 2.7, petition for referendum, last section F. At the end, it says, well, at the beginning too, section 2.7, oh, that's what you're in. It doesn't apply to section 2.4 at the end. And I think it should say section 2.4 of this charter, because if you look other places, it does. And it says what section of the general statute it would be also. So there are different areas there. I think there was one about that. It's probably in the other book though. Oh yeah, right above it, section A in 2.7. It says general statute, section 7.9. So this one does not denote that it's section 2.4 of the charter. Others places do. Chapter 4, section C, Board of Finance alternates. This again is just a typo, second line. It says elected for a term 6 years. It should be a term of 6 years.
Where was that again, Mark?
That's on chapter 4, section C, Board of Finance alternates, second line.
Thank you.
Just like 5 words in, term of 6 years. Now getting to chapter 7. Chapter 7 I have questions on. Section 7.1, section 7.7, these are about appointments. And it's not really clear of what the appointments are. And I know Kevin has a question about section 7.2 also on his notes. He may want to eliminate that because it's on Board of Selectmen anyway. So if you could look at those, section 7.1 and 7.7. If you could tell me if that's an appointment of a person, a member of the board, or is it appointment of the board itself, or whatever?
And just to clarify, did you mention 7-2?
7-2 is in Kevin's notes. He wanted to do something with that.
Okay.
7-5C, we ran into this with the Conservation Commission about a year ago. We didn't have a Republican, Democrat. A couple Libertarians came, and because the terms weren't expired, they couldn't be filled by, so we weren't able to fill those positions because of this. So I don't know if that could be looked at. I don't know if they could read when the term gets expired, it could be filled by anyone, any political party. It's not clear there. And 9-2D, nepotism. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down, last word. Shouldn't be there. Oh, should not be there. It should be scratched. Section 10-4, A, at the top of page 19. Same thing, section 2-5, it doesn't say what of. It might want to be of this charter. If you look down at the bottom of that page, section 10.7, of borrowing, you'll see the example at the end, section 2-5 of this charter. So that's what prompted me to look at these other ones. And of course, the last page is unintentionally left blank. That needs to be changed. And let me look at this other one just in case I missed it. Oh yes, back to chapter 7, appointed boards and commissions. Kevin and I both noticed that Conservation Commission is not on here. They have been established by ordinance. Agriculture Commission is not on here, but we have not established them by ordinance yet. So that's something we need to do also. But if we could add the Conservation Commission to there, that would be great. Breeze through this one, see if there's anything else.
One clarification, you said the Conservation Commission, and then what was the other commission?
Agriculture
Agriculture.
Commission. But that is not established by ordinance yet. So we'd have to do that before it would be put into the charter. So, any questions?
Can you,
Yeah.
could you write all of these down for us, like a list? Because we
Yeah.
went through it kind of fast.
Yeah, I could do that. I'll give it to
I
you.
know we weren't all following.
I'll give it to you, your secretary.
Yeah, okay, that would be
Okay,
That would be very helpful.
Okay.
To make sure
I
I'm
could
not
do that.
missing any.
I'll do it tonight.
So then the only other part of part two here with the revisions presented by the Board of Selectmen, I don't anticipate Kevin being here to speak to it at this time, but I can speak just very, very quickly for the sake of the public hearing that page number one, number one is fix the budget section. So that, we've got a couple of points noted here, I think encompassing both how the budget is voted on as far as pieces, so 3 separate parts to the budget. And then later on in the section, it does speak to early voting or absentee voting as a question that could be addressed through a similar process, because obviously when it comes to voting in town, it's not just office holders. The budget is part of what we vote on as well. So what I will plan on doing, I do not wish to speak for Kevin, nor am I equipped to speak on behalf of the Board of Selectmen. I will make it a point of our next meeting agenda to have a presentation of these for any clarity. I would encourage members to review the documents, put together any questions we have from what's been distributed. If you don't have your copy any longer, we will get additional copies for you. So we will be ready to engage in a more informed conversation about some of these suggestions on here at that time. And moving on to number 3, other possible town charter revisions. So this part of the meeting, again, I would like to turn it over to members of the audience if there's anything that you may have forgotten and thought of, if there's anything you would like to mention in addition, but also from commission members in your capacity as residents of the town, if there's anything you would like to speak up about now or bring to the commission's attention as a possible idea, now would be the time. The one thing I will ask, if we have a member of the commission who would like to speak, that we not do so from the table. If you're speaking as a resident, I would encourage you to go out and use the microphone to address us that way. And your chair does have one suggestion. I will lead by example here. So Matt Radan of Musa. This one might fall under more of a grammatical correction, but I believe it would still take a little bit of legal work to perform. But I heard the suggestion from a few people saying that it would be very helpful if in our town charter we cited the state statute where applicable. So that if there was a rule in there that was in our charter, that we had the specific CGS number, Connecticut General Statute number to reference. I think in the opinions of those who've spoken it to me, they said that it would be a lot easier to discern what was within the town's control and also what is a state issue as far as reaching out or getting information about. I know that would probably be a heavy lift or a little time intensive to go through, possibly, but I think it is something to keep in mind where all too often, as being part of the previous commissions, we have had a lot of ideas brought out that we really can't implement in our charter because it does fall back on state statute. So I think it could help clarity in future charter revisions as well if some effort was to be undertaken in that regard.
Gary Stelling, Musa. I'm not sure, you may want to check as far as elected officials not fulfilling their duties. I know, I'm pretty sure in Connecticut, you can't recall an elected official at any level. Because we had a member that hasn't shown up in a year and a half, 2 years. I'm not sure if there's any possibility through the state that something we could maybe input into the charter with that, but I'm not sure.
I will say that same suggestion was brought up at the previous charter revision, and that has been brought forward.
Yeah, because I read somewhere, Connecticut's one of the few states that I can't recall or whatever.
That's what I.
My understanding of the charter is that when it comes to commissions,
Yeah,
a commission member may be removed.
correct. Yeah,
But
but not an elected
So an
official.
appointed position
Yeah.
follows different rules for state statute as opposed to an elected position.
And I totally concur with you about stating state statutes within the charter, because I try to, my best when I help write the bylaws for the Board of Finance, I stated in the bylaws, I referred back to the state statute on certain items for that, so I totally concur with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Well, say that the charter, when it was written, everything was based on state statute. For some reason, they didn't put that in there, so I have to go back and find out. They didn't reference anything. You have to look it up.
To that note,
I'm curious.
I believe it may actually state in the opening, short of a preamble, but I believe it does make mention as falling back on state statute. That has been brought to my attention by a number of people in town. Anyone else who would like to offer any suggestions or thoughts or advice to the commission this time? Hearing none, I will look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make your motion.
So I heard Lynn.
Second.
Was it
Cheryl.
Cheryl made the second, okay. All right, there's a motion to adjourn, all in favor?